Good morning, everyone. Good morning, recruiters. This morning we've got the fabulous Russell Monday with us. Russell, would you like to introduce yourself to the team?
Fabulous, I love that. Hi, my name's Russell Mundy. I've got 25 years recruitment experience, mainly in sort of tech and engineering, and predominantly a majority of that has been setting and starting up contract divisions that have gone on to be sort of global regional businesses, turning over sort of between 150 and 200,000 pounds a week. And I also started a contract division a few years ago for a business which was turning over 1.2 million in its first year. So 25 years experience, mainly tech and engineering.
Okay, guys. So if you're not doing contract, how does an extra 1.2 million turnover sound to you?
How does 150 grand a week?
Well, yeah. After the first year, but yes, that's the key. So that's what we're talking about today, because the market, we all know, has changed. We've all pivoted, looking at different things that we can do. And one of the key things I remember, I was a perm recruiter in 89, 90, the recession hit. We had 2 years pretty much without perm. So we switched, and temp and contract, that's where it was at. As soon as people got a little bit of confidence back about what was happening, then yes, they want to recruit, but they don't necessarily want to recruit perm. So what do you think is going to happen over the next 6 months then with regards to the market in sense of contract, Russell?
Well, you know, so I think that, I think there's definitely going to be, people are going to be worried about the future in the next 6 months, but there will be projects that they need to bring online to deliver revenue, but will they have the confidence to hire a permanent hire and commit to that long-term financial commitment? I think being able to talk about contract, interim or temp is a really good way of maybe giving them other solutions in terms of rather than strapping themselves to those long-term commitments. So I think that it's a really good way of introducing contract to businesses.
Definitely. So if you are a perm recruiter and you haven't done contract before, what sort of the key differences really, I suppose, with regards to perm and contract, having done both yourself?
Okay, well, it depends. Is that to a client or is that just generally? I mean, because
right, both sides. Let's start with the consultant.
Okay, so number one, contract is it's very focused on trying to understand clients' business and why they would hire contractors into the business and when they hired them and what would it, and what projects they've got coming up. It's all about sort of understanding their business and why they would bring temps in, very much from a client point of view. Obviously from a candidate point of view, candidates are much more, they need a job now potentially, so they're a little bit more fast paced, a little bit more what have you got, rather than making that investment into their careers. So it's pretty getting to the point of what do they want.
I think that's a key thing here to as a takeaway for today. One of the things is those people that just wanted permanent, weren't interested in contract, weren't interested in temp in any way, shape or form, go revisit them because their life has changed drastically. And when those things happen, people will consider. And it's a great way of actually getting into a business, proving yourself. And my experience was that people might be there for 3 months, 6 months, and then once the company is stable again and knows what it's doing, they get a permanent job through it anyway, and they already know they want to work there. So it's a great win-win, I think, for both.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think there'll be a lot of people that are out of work and maybe have never considered contract because of that lack of security, but they're probably going to feel there's a lack of security now. So there's probably going to be some very, very good first-time contractors out there. And I think it'd be a good idea to actually think about, maybe talk to me or Angela about, the sort of questions you can ask them about how they feel about contract and what they know about contract, etc.
I think that's a good point here, guys. If you want to put in the sidebar, or if you're on LinkedIn with us this morning, if you want to put in the comments there, if you've got any questions or queries, Russell's here at the moment. He will be joining us next month with a new contracts course. So I believe 27th of July, I think we said that we're going to actually start an 8-week contracts course because we know this is needed. We've got Alan starting his retainer on the 6th because we know we want to get some money up front, but we also want to make sure that you have that opportunity to take advantage of the contract market. So either if you've done it before and want some refreshers, or if you've not done it and you're a little bit hesitant. So there's different ways that you can approach the contract market. I know my initial, when we started doing it, we were hesitant about all the rates and how that would work. So actually what we did, we just divided the year perm fee by however many months they wanted them for. So if it was a 3-month contract, they got a quarter of the perm fee, and then we invoiced that on a quarterly basis. So they still took them on themselves. What about if they're worried about margins, markups, things like that?
Yeah, I mean, look, that's really easy. I would say reach out to me. The first thing you need to do is you need to think about the markets that you want to do. So start to look at the current sort of permanent roles that you place and seeing if there's a contract market there. And if there is, then really you just need to set yourself a little goal of saying, I'm going to speak to 10 candidates in this skill set, and I'm going to 10 contract candidates, and I'm going to just do a bit of a recce and find out what these people are earning. Are they earning an hourly rate? Are they earning a day rate? And try and get some sort of trends and some consistency about what these people earn. And then you can work out what you would need to charge your client by putting a margin on top of that. That's the best way of really going and sort of doing a bit of a recce on what these people earn.
And of course that will have changed, wouldn't it, this year? There would have been differences in pays and charge rates. So actually doing the research now is the perfect time, because we're sort of at that point now. We're about to open up again end of next week, and fingers crossed it'll all take off again and we'll all be moving forwards. So what about if you think about you're running a contracts desk, then you want to put a contracts desk in, what's going to be really important for you to focus on at this point?
So, I mean, I spoke about this yesterday. If you've done all your research and you know your market and you know what you want to target, then it's really, really important that you go out and start speaking to contractors and starting to map your market, starting to find out where contractors have worked, where they're working now, and try and find out the managers and a list of managers and clients that you know hire contractors. So once you've decided on what your market is and what you want to do, and there's a market there, then it's really a case of finding those middle managers to find out the people that do hire, and then go and get sort of a portfolio of those managers and those clients that you know have hired contractors. So really speak to candidates and really find out where they've worked before and who they've reported to, by making friends with them, and then you can start having a target list of managers that you know have spent money on contract.
And just to reference, you're saying you talked about this yesterday, and I can see Tracy said hello again, Russell, because she was webinar yesterday. This was a webinar with team, is that right?
It was, yeah.
Fantastic. So any team members on here, if you missed that, then obviously make sure you go back and access that as well. What about contract recruiters? So we talked about people sort of starting up and having the confidence to go, contract market, need to get into that. Let's actually put some effort into it, so they can start doing the research now. They can start talking to candidates about it, start talking to their existing clients about it.
Yeah, completely.
And if you still want a lot of help, then your 8-week course, fantastic. And we'll be putting the link to that. That's going to all be set up next week. Looking forward to that. But what about if you've already got contract and perm? How can the contract team be working with the perm team at the moment? Because they quite often keep themselves separate, but we need them working.
That's a really good point. And I always said to my contract consultants that the permanent person was probably worth £25,000 a year to you. So it's absolutely critical that you have a really strong relationship with them and you cross-sell each other. And obviously, most perm markets, they struggle to get candidates. So I always said to my contract guys, always look out for candidates for those guys. And then what I would do is obviously get the permanent guys to look out for contracts. So just be cross-selling and asking questions like, how do you feel about a contractor instead of a permanent person in for this position? When would it be critical if we don't find a permanent person that you would consider a contractor? So think about some questions that the perm guys can cross-sell, because although the perm guys may feel they're losing out on a permanent fee, if they're struggling to fill a permanent job, then another agency is going to sell them the contract option. So you're better off doing that in-house than running the risk of someone doing it externally. So it's really thinking about 2 or 3, 4 questions that the permanent consultant can ask the manager regarding contract, but also on the same side, making sure that the contract consultant can also be looking out for perm potentially perm candidates as well.
Fantastic. So we're getting them working together, looking out for both candidates and clients. Yeah, the candidate bit is really important as well, that they're identifying those people that said they wanted perm, but actually now, yeah, I would consider a contract. Yeah. So go back through all those live candidates that you've been working with and see where their situation is. So you can start building that pool of really good candidates.
And I think about incentivizing, you know, if a permanent person finds a contract role or gets a contract lead, then it's just really about incentivizing, you know, rather than asking them to do the right things, which is great, but it's actually maybe incentivizing them as well, and then monitoring and measuring that, because people don't actually do it unless people really buy into it. So it's really important that you think about how you're going to monitor, measure, and incentivize people to do that.
Yeah, I think this is one of the key things, isn't it? I think you mentioned in a downturn market about making sure that you've got that consistency. So what else should the contractor be focusing on while we are at this downturn, ready for the up?
Do you know, Tom, I went from sort of 350 contractors of £100 a day profit per contractor of nearly £200,000 a week down to 60 contractors. And I realised that the volume of the market wasn't there. So it was really a case of looking at being really focused and structured and putting processes in place. So just an example of things that you can do is what we did is we put every single end date of a contractor, because some contractors didn't want to extend, so you could try and backfill their role. You know, you're trying to sell people back into opportunities where they've worked there before. So it's looking at all these small little details, and once you add all those details up, I hate the saying marginal gains, but if you've got 4 or 5 detailed processes in place, then that marginal gain becomes 10%, and that's an extra 10% you're getting from the market that you wouldn't have got if you didn't do these things. So it's about process structure, follow-up, consistency, and looking at those little wins that you can be doing every day to maximize finding a needle in a haystack, in theory.
And actually, the little wins are great at the moment, aren't they? We're actually feeling like really big wins. We've had people on the stand-up saying, I've got a job today, or I've got an interview. This was quite a few weeks ago. We're moving on now. But actually, it was a really big win at that point, and it felt great. And you're right, processes tend to, when we've got great markets, and we've had good markets for a good sort of 8 years since we came out of the GFC, the little bits get dropped off, or they're not as important, are they? Or that sort of crossing the T's and dotting the I's.
You know, I think, sorry to interrupt, I think there's a bit of a misconception if you're a contract consultant, you fly by the seat of your pants. And there's an element of truth in the speed of what we do, but actually a consistent contract consultant has got processes. Or, you know, I had I still do this. I have a hot list of candidates that are in contracts that tell me what's happening externally, tell me what's happening internally where they're working. You know, it's constantly having those processes and people in place that allows you to constantly know what's going on or what's coming up. And I think there's this misconception that we fly by the seat of our pants, which is not the case, because the ones that do fly by the seat of their pants, the ones that normally the ones that are inconsistent and burn out. So in an upturn market or a downturn market, you still need to have those processes and those consistent ways of working in place. But more importantly, in the downturn market.
I'm loving that you said that, because I'm a process person, I'm a best practice person, and that CRM had to be up to date. There had to be all the in there, and that's what makes it easier to control, doesn't it? You know what's going on, you've got your plan, you know who you're contacting, and you've got to focus for the week. Okay, so I'm looking at the time with a couple of minutes left, so I want to pull together some of the things and then finish with one great question to help people think about what they're going to do. So we want to make sure that we've got processes, that we've got follow-up. We want the perm and the contract team working together if you've got both. If you've only done perm and you really need to consider contract, then start talking to your candidates, start talking to your clients about when they would potentially consider that. But let's finish with 3 great questions then. If you're a perm consultant and your clients predominantly do perm, they haven't done contract before, what would be 3 great questions that you could ask your clients and they could start doing that today?
Do you know something? I think you assume they don't hire contractors. So even if they're clients you're working with, I would ask questions like, you know, how many contractors do you currently have in the team? You know, be assumptive. Don't say do you or have you, because it's normally a default a lot of the time, contract or temp or interim, unless it's seasonal for certain markets. But generally, it's a bit of a default. So I would ask, how many contractors do you currently have in the team or in the business? So the wider context of the business. When was the last time you hired an interim, a contractor, or a temp into the business? And why does the business, or why has the business brought temps into the business in the past? I mean, I've got a list of about 10 questions here, to be honest. But I think a really good starting point is just to be assumptive. How many contractors have you got on site? When was the last time you hired interim, contract, or temp? And who else in the business would bring temps in or contractors? So just really assumptive, open questions would be a good starting point.
Great. Okay. Well, hopefully we're gonna get people going out there, talking to their clients, talking to candidates, finding out that there's that potential in the next quarter and the next 2 quarters to really take advantage of some contract market. So look out for Russell's course that'll be starting in about 4 weeks' time. Tomorrow morning we've got Alex and Claire back. We're sort of calling it Alex's regular own therapy session, where he talks to Claire about mental health and well-being, but there's usually something that's happened in the week that Claire then talks him through and works him through with that. We've had a really busy week in the gym. Russell's going to be obviously spending a lot more time with us. You'll see on the stand-up that we've got the new face on there, so feel free in the gym to ask us questions.
My hair was a bit shorter then, guys. I've gelled it back. I'm just about containing it at the moment.
It's the lockdown hair, isn't it? We're all going to remember that. Yeah, those roots are quite impressive now. So we want to make sure, obviously, you get access to all our coaches if you've got questions or queries. Next week, we're going to start moving over to the new gym, so we're excited about that. And we'll still be utilising Crowdcast within that, so it shouldn't change too much for you here on the stand-up. We look forward to seeing you there. All right, and then the last one to finish the weekend. Tomorrow, it's Friday. It's 5 to 5, and it's... Are you old enough, Russell? Yeah, we
remember Cracker Jack.
Exactly. So start the weekend with the last Crips and Clark is starting at 5 to 5 tomorrow. So we're going to be doing a bit of reflecting on blast from the past. And obviously Cracker Jack was a big part of my childhood. Brilliant. All right. Thanks ever so much, Russell. That's fantastic. Look forward to you in the gym here, and have a great day, everyone. It's a hot one. It's really hot. Enjoy it. Don't get burnt. All right. See you soon. Bye-bye.